to a conclusion where you was never a slave. Let's start there. Because even if you are shackled, you're still not a slave. That's what somebody's calling you. What do you think about yourself? Colonialism is never going to tell you when you won. Never. Colonialism and imperialism is never going to tell you when you defeated them. It's never going to make a history book and say, these Africans over here kicked our ass. You need to know this for your history. No, they're never going to. You're going to get a little inkling here, a little sweet there, a little bit. But no, colonialism rules, and it was a few revolts, but we put that down, and this is your reality. Nah, far from the truth. Far from the truth. Here's the truth. The truth is that, yes, many Africans were imprisoned, or should I say enslaved. Many Africans were captured for no reason and put to work. Now ask yourself, if somebody walked in this door right now, put their hands on you and say, yo, you're going to work right now. Or better yet, put their hands on your child. And better yet, put their hands on your wife, your mother, your father, dragging them, putting a rope around their neck, dragging them, and you standing there, able-bodied man. You gonna stand? Are you gonna stand there and let them put a rope around your mother's neck? Now, the reason I ask the question is because this is what Black history is all about. Character. Some dudes watched their mother get the rope around their neck and they just stood there. Terrified. What they call petrified with fear. Your sister dragged off. Your brother dragged off. You can't move. Others, the minute the guy raised his hand against his mother, the hand came off. The second you go in the truth, you're dead. Those Africans ain't in history. They call the Maroons, the Cimarroons, Zulu Nation. That's what they called. Or they chopped the French up, chopped the English up, beat the Americans down. No, that's not in history. Even when we do history of Egypt, ancient Egypt, very little on Kush. Very little, yeah. We can get a lot on ancient Egypt. Kemet. Not much on Kush. Not much on Nubia, who was kicking Egypt's ass. Who Egypt was robbing for the gold, for the slaves, for the spices. How did Egypt get so rich? They robbing Kush. I'll get back to that later. Come back to the prison. So you're told that your history begins in a prison. Nothing of your continent. Just this little piece right here. It's like we live in New York. 8 million people in New York, or actually now 11 million people in New York. But they're going to tell your children that the only history they should be studying is the history of Rikers Island. The brothers and sisters on Rikers Island, which is a prison in upstate New York. That is your history. That's the equivalent to the slave history we're getting today. This is why it must be started from your mouth. The minute you can realize American slavery never existed. What existed was early American employment. You don't buy a human being and then beat him to death. That's movies. You don't, slaves, so-called slaves, Africans, were so skillful that the American economy could not survive without Africans. That's why you're here if you are black in the United States. That's the reason why you're here. You're here because when you look at those photos and you look at those paintings and you look at that and you say, Look at that guy. Look at what he got on. Like you said, look at the Queen of England in the 1700s. Say, look at her gown. That was made by Africans. The beauty of it, the texture, the very cotton grown African. The chair she's sitting down in Africa. The one who made the scepter, made the crown, Africans. The diamonds in the crown, from Africa. The gold around the crown, from Africa. See, if you know how to look for your people, you see them everywhere. Your history is never lost when you have a soul. Never lost. You just got to know where to look for your people at. If you keep looking at MTV and BET, you're never going to see your people. You're going to see colonial people and colonial heroes and imperialist heroes. That's who they want you to be like. That's who they want you to follow. They want you to be a colonist so colonialism can continue. How else is colonialism supposed to continue if we don't raise up some colonists? What does it mean to be a colonist? It means you think like one. What does it mean to think like a colonist? It means you forgot that you're in this land illegally. Once you forget that everyone in this room is in America illegally, you are the illegal aliens. All that Mexico talk, that's for idiots. You're the illegal aliens. The minute you forget that, you're a colonist. The minute you forget that, you're an imperialist. And if you have no problem with that, no problem. But that's what you are. You're not indigenous. Because the minute you realize, me as an African, I realize, wait a minute, this ain't my land. Well, what am I fighting for citizenship and I need equal justice under the law? I'm not even supposed to be here. We crying out for rights and justice that a colonial society can never produce. The things we protesting against and protesting for, the very society we live within cannot produce that kind of justice. Just because we have some scholars in the room today, I thought I'd just talk about history in and of itself. Let me start first with this little brief, just want to read you some definitions real quick. Let's start with colonialism, just so we know what it is. Colonialism, the policy or practice of acquiring political control over another country, occupying it with settlers and exploiting it economically. It is an imperial system which attempts to maintain hold over colonies, especially with the purpose of exploiting them. So understand what a colony is, understand what colonialism is. You don't belong here. You belong somewhere else, like England. But you come over to this new land that was occupied by millions of people. Hundreds of nations. You settle on their land. How do you settle on their land? You have better technology. What's your better technology? First you come with the horse. Then you come with the gun. Then you got the alcohol. What the Indians got? Gold, silver, copper, nickel, emeralds, fish. This is what Europe did not have. This is what England, France, Germany, they didn't have that. So you go to somebody else's land and what do? You settle in the land and you start killing the people and taking the resources. That's colonialism. America is a colonial power. Forget history. It doesn't exist here. There's no way that you will ever get history on stolen land. What you're going to get is a constant justification for robbery. Let's read on. Once you understand history, the nature of history, it's real easy to understand everything else. Get this. This is the etymology of the word history, real quick. The word hist relates to calling on people to listen. Get this, hist, H-I-S-T, relates to calling on people to listen. It was originally used to summon someone or something in silence, like without noise, like psst, psst, like that. Like summoning a dog with hiss, hiss the boy. The suffix ori means of or having to do with or characterized by or serving to or tending to or place or establishment for whatever the main word is, like crematory, laboratory, observatory, even territory, earth, tory, relating to the earth, auditory, relating to audio or audition. The American Heritage Dictionary lists ori, O-R-Y, as of relating to or characterized by or a place or thing used or in connection with. When applied to hist, it is the first definition that is correct, of, relating to, or characterized by. That's what we use in ori as. Ori is related to, characterized by. In this case, ori is related to or characterized by hist, meaning that what ori is doing is relating itself to his. What is his story? His ori. History, or should I say this? His ori is characterized by his, the silent calling. It is serving to and tending to the his, the silent calling. That's what ori is doing. It's tending to the his. His ori can also be the place or establishment for the his, the place of the silent calling. History then has to do with, is characterized by, and serves the interest of whoever or whatever is silently calling you. This is what a his is, a silent call. His story is whatever is related to that silent call. History is a calling technique. It is an attention grabber, even a distraction. It is not, however, the documentation of past events. Stop here. The word history has nothing to do with the documentation of past events. Get that one. The word history has to do with a silent calling, a gesture for you to come here. Listen to this, but without speaking. Without saying, come here, listen to this. Gestures and hissings that tell you to come here. That's what history is. That's what the word is. This makes history the science of silent summoning, not the documentation of the past. Here, the question becomes, if the actual word history has very little to do with the documentation of past events and people and has more to do with the act of hissing, then what are we being hissed or called to? What are we really being summoned to? It is obvious that we are not being called to the accurate documentation of our own history. So again, what are we being silently called to? Based upon the histories that we have actually received and are still receiving in school, it appears that we are being summoned to the authority and existence of white European colonialism and colonists. Through what is called history, we are being summoned and called, even lured and tempted to our further oppression. Basically, we are being intellectually hunted and story, or history, is the call of the intellectual hunter, the mind devourer. American history, as it is presently taught, is calling us Africans to slavery and subordination. But of course, this is not how history is viewed by the public. Stop. Look at the double standards in a colonial society. You have the truth, and then you have your colonial thinking. Look at this. What I'm explaining here is that the word history has nothing to do with the documentation of past events. So what exactly is a history? For African Americans, when you say black history, you're supposed to be being called to your blackness. But in a colonial society, black history becomes a call to your enslavement. We have yet to write our own history. All of African American history is written by white folk. All of it. Not some of it, all of it. First they say, oh, slaves couldn't write. So where's our history? This is not the way history is presented, though. This is not how we look at history. Here's how we look at history. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, history is, quote, a written narrative constituting a continuous record in order of time of importance or public events, especially those connected with a particular country, people, individual, etc. It is the whole train of events connected with a particular country, society, person, thing, etc., and forming the subject of his or its history. It is history, a course of existence of life or career, a course of existence worthy of record. The American Heritage Dictionary explains history as a chronological record of events as of the life or development of a people or institution, often including an explanation of or commentary on those events. History, however, is presented to tell a story about a specific people, place, or thing. In the long run, the factual recording of a people, place, or thing is not as important as the story that is being told about those people, places, and things through history. When it comes to a people, a culture, it is the story, the description, the collective tradition, as well as the vision of those people that are explained in their story, their history. Such a history is supposedly a continuous record, a continuous recording of past events, or simply public record. But in academic circles, history is thought to be a critical analysis of something or someone memorable. It must also be noted that the terms historic and historical do not always hold the same meanings. Historical is basically anything or anyone that existed in the past, whereas the term historic relates to one's influence on the past. A person of the past is historical, but the actions, the influences, and the importance of such a person in that past is what is called historic. Historical refers to the study of the past. It is like saying historical is the study of what is historic. Grandmaster Flash is a historical figure, but his manipulation of the turntable and mixer was historic. In other words, it was worthy of note, something to be remembered. Something historic is something to be remembered, worthy of memory. This is interesting to our study because under these definitions of history, historic, and historical, we can see how a historian is actually choosing what is memorable or noteworthy to record. Out of all that is going on in global human activity, The historian is choosing what is noteworthy or important to his or her readership. Therefore, if the activities of another culture or community are deemed not worthy of note, or is considered unimportant by the historian, or the historian is unaware of such activities as well as the people